Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Interesting case sent to me out of Pennsylvania by a whole bunch of people. And here's the thing. Police officers often like to have ways they can pull you over legally. And the more ways they can do that legally, the better off they sometimes feel. But of course, the idea that you're driving down the road and a police officer pulls you over for some bogus reason is upsetting to many people, myself included. And I've heard some great stories of crazy things people have been pulled over for, including a friend of mine who got pulled over for having the tag that you wear on the zipper pull when you go skiing at a particular ski resort. And he had saved the tag and hung it from his rearview mirror. And the police officer said, that is obstructing your vision. And it's like, okay. Well, this is a better one here. Your license plate frame is enough for police in Pennsylvania to pull you over, according to the court there. WHYY.org ran the story. Angela Columbus wrote it. Thousands of drivers in Pennsylvania could now be at greater risk of getting pulled over by the police simply because they have a frame around their license plate. And you might say, but Steve, I understand if the license plate's covered, police officer can pull you over and say, hey, I can't see your license plate. Oh, no, it doesn't matter. If they can read your license plate, it doesn't matter. It's simply having the frame covering any of the plate. A state appellate court ruling affirmed the right of police officers to stop drivers if any part of the plate is obscured. That doesn't just include the letters and numbers and the unique part of the plate. It's any portion of the plate. So it even applies to, in essence, the paint around the edges or visitpa.com. Critics argue, of course, the decision raises concerns about people being pulled over for no reason or the wrong reasons, could give police another pretext to pull over drivers for trivial reasons, and that, of course, can lead to wide-ranging and unintended consequences. And this was by a 3-judge Superior Court panel that made this ruling. And at a point in time when we want to do away with pretextual stops, this decision specifically opens the door to every single person being stopped at the will of police for investigation, says a Philadelphia lawyer, Philip Steinberg, who argued against the court's decision. Now, he says it opens the door to every person being stopped. Well, I actually don't like license plate frames. So I've got 3 vehicles right now. None of them have license plate frames. And one of them came from the dealership with a license plate frame on it. I drove it home and took it off. I've also had dealerships try to put frames on my car after servicing it. And I said, I don't want that there. Can you please take that off? And I know people who also have them for the school they attended, their sports team. My honor roll student can beat up your honor roll student, whatever it is. Some people are into those, but I just never got into them. So spokesperson for Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner's office, which appealed the case, called the assessment unfair. The ruling, said Krasner, spokesperson Dustin Slaughter, simply confirms current case law and does not enable officers to employ new or different tactics when conducting traffic stops. But the ruling itself states the decision answers a novel question before the court. So this is something that had never been before this court before. And they said that. And they ruled and said that you cannot cover any portion of the plate. So when the spokesperson says it simply confirms current case law, well, there wasn't any case law on it. And apparently the lower courts had said this also. But interestingly, it says does not enable officers to deploy new or different tactics, assuming they've been doing this all along. And if they have been, then yeah, nothing new here, nothing to see. At the heart of the decision is how to interpret the language in a section of Pennsylvania's vehicle code that prohibits license plates from being obscured. So the statute says you cannot obscure your license plate. And the question is, what does obscure mean? Well, we could always consult the OED, but it makes me, wouldn't you know it? It's on the other side. Hang on. There might be some edits in here. Might. Hey, I'm optimistic, I'm going to tell you. Let's look at what the word obscure means. Let's see. Obstreperous, obsolete, observational. Sorry for hitting the microphone there. I always forget it's there. To obscure, to make obscure or dark, to involve in darkness. Probably an old school meaning there. Hang on. to dim or lessen the luster or glory of, to cover or hide from view, to conceal. So I suspect that's the one that most people would assume is the case here. To cover or hide from view, to conceal. So you might say, Steve, I guess a license plate frame does cover or hide from view or conceal a portion of the plate. Well, the question is that what they meant when they put that in the statute? Because technically speaking, when you use screws or bolts to put your plate in place, right? The head of the screw also obscures a tiny little portion around the circle of the hole that the screws go through. Technically speaking, those obscure a part of the plate. The real meaning, obviously, would be to obscure or hide or make it harder to see the portion of the plate that's important. Someone could argue and say, what about the other side of the plate? There's two sides to every plate, right? Unless it's a Mobius plate. So the real question here is, did the legislature really intend to say that the plate has got to be visible, and we're talking about all 100% of its face? Let's just say the face of it's got to be visible. Theoretically, if you get a fleck of dirt on it, police officer can pull you over. Say, yeah, you got a fleck of dirt on your plate. Part of your plate was obscured. So it seems like an absurd result, but the legislature could fix this quite easily. So they'd have to go at this and go into the code, because the code states that it's unlawful to display a license plate that is so dirty that its numbers and letters are illegible from a reasonable distance, or is obscured in such a way that a red light camera or toll collection system can't read it, or is otherwise illegible at a reasonable distance, or is obscured in any manner. Now, the interesting thing is the way that's phrased, or is obscured in any manner, sounds like a catch-all. But if you have a catch-all that swallows the entire rule, then you can't read it as a catch-all, okay? So it says this, or obscured in any manner. If we're going to claim that everything that blocks even a portion of it is obscuring it in any manner, then you wouldn't need the previous rules to be there. And that's one of the things that always bothers me about the courts is, I've talked about this before, it's a concept called statutory construction. That is, you look at how a statute was made and how it should be construed. And you're supposed to treat a statute as if it was drafted intelligently, meaning that they did certain things for a reason. Nothing is done willy-nilly. So you'd ask yourself why they would have a whole bunch of rules and then one that says, or obscured in any manner. Because if obscured in any manner also includes the definitions above it, then you wouldn't put that there, or you wouldn't put those there. So obscured in any manner, presumably, I would think, means that there's something that they just hadn't thought of that is still keeping it from being visible or readable or whatever. But the solution here is one of two things. They could take this to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, who could spin it around and say that's an absurd result. Or you can go to the Pennsylvania legislature and say, hey, you got to fix this because it was probably not intended to be that broad. In this ruling, the three judges seized on the phrase, or is obscured in any manner, which they said was a catch-all phrase, meant to prohibit all obstructions of any part of the plate. The legislature only wanted to prohibit just obstructions of the license plate number and issuing authority. It would have specifically done so, the panel said. While we appreciate Appellee's position that Section 1332 should be limited to the elements of a registration plate that are actually pertinent to the identification of a vehicle's registration, that interpretation does not comport with the plain reading of the statute, wrote the judge who drafted the opinion. The ruling stems from a case involving an April 2021 traffic stop in Philadelphia, during which a police officer pulled over a car because of a partially obstructed plate. What was obstructed? The strip at the bottom of the plate that lists the website of the state's official tourism office, visitpa.com. That's what's on standard issue license plates in Pennsylvania. And then it was during that stop that the police officer noticed that a passenger was acting nervous, and that led to other things. Obviously, man was charged with several crimes, but at a pretrial hearing, a lower court suppressed the evidence that the officer had recovered because they found that the officer lacked probable cause to make the stop in the first place, because simply having the license plate frame did not obstruct the license plate. And here, the Superior Court's 3-judge panel on appeal disagrees with that result. So as of right now, in Pennsylvania, you can be pulled over for having a license plate frame on your license plate. And yes, this would apply to people passing through Pennsylvania from other states. So if you drive through Pennsylvania periodically and you've got a license plate frame on your license plate, you might want to take it off. Otherwise, they can pull you over. Why'd you pull me over, officer? You got a license plate frame there. It's obscuring your license plate. And I am more curious about, like I said, the screws that hold your license plate in place, whether you use 2 or 4, another school of thought on that. But the head of the screw must be larger than the hole it's going through, otherwise it won't function. Therefore, the head of the screw does obscure a part of the plate. And I know you're saying, Steve, that's absurd. Sorry. Technically speaking, following this ruling, it is obscuring or obstructing a part of the plate. It's a small part, very, very small part, but it's a part nonetheless. So this is a crazy ruling, but the judges are saying basically, hey, look, we're going after words on paper. If you don't like the words on paper, change them. So it may take the legislature in Pennsylvania to fix this, or they might not care. So the time being, like I said, if you're in Pennsylvania or passing through, you might want to pull that license plate frame off your car. So this is from WHYY.org. Angela Columbus wrote it. Your license plate frame is enough for police in Pennsylvania to pull you over, according to the courts. John, Mike, Jesse, Lee, Robert, Edward, Suze, and Sean all sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. If success were easy, everybody would do it.